Chad Fahey is the owner of Charlie's Bark Park in Belleville and also Canine Clarity, a crazy advanced dog training business that we'll talk about. It's crazy advanced. And he joins us here on the Unleashed podcast. Chad, really appreciate the time. And also, I should note that Chad played a huge role in how Unleashed has been sort of developed from a facility standpoint and some of the things that we do in practice on a day-to-day basis. So nothing but the best here. Chad, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit about Daycare today and kind of what your experience has been. Now, you started Charlie's, what is it now, 10, 12 years ago? What are we looking at?
15 years ago.
15 years ago. Yep. Didn't mean to shortchange you.
Anyway, no. It's been a long time. The hair's turned gray in that time frame.
Yes. So. Yeah. As you can see, mine's starting from the beard up. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's where it goes.
We'll see how it goes. But anyway, you started and you got into it. You were in the business world. You were in sales and sort of wanted to get into being able to make your love of dogs a career, and you did so. And you started Charlie's. And tell me a little bit about kind of if you've learned a couple things along the way and how you work with Daycare and kind of what your experience has been in terms of accepting dogs into daycare. I assume, and we've talked before, that you've kind of gone through the whole gamut of learning about how dogs do best in daycare and what pet parents should be looking for when they're looking for a dog daycare to take their dog to.
Absolutely. Social play is incredibly important to every dog. But yes, we have learned along the past 15 years quite a bit. The energies that go into a yard, how dogs are entered into a yard, how even dogs enter into the facility with the parents makes a difference. But the most important thing of all that we have found, and I have, because I've been working with other facilities, is the evaluation process for the dogs. So if we evaluate the dogs effectively and the staff understands energy levels, pack placements, it's really easy to teach a staff this. And then what that will allow them to do is see things that other people can't from a psychological standpoint in social play that will allow them to sift out the dogs that are might pose a problem later. Too much energy shows up into the room. So really another thing is sorting dogs by energy. So some facilities will run one pack of dogs, one size, one pack. Based on the size of the facility. The bigger the facility gets, we tend to break those down by size, small, medium, and large. At Charlie's, the medium and large pack of dogs are energy-based. They're also bigger dogs, a little bit bigger, but you can have German Shepherds in the medium pack, Mastiffs if they're lower energy, learning how to pack dogs by energy and enter them into daycare. Even if they're coming out of a boarding environment, the handling that goes into a dog from the removal of the kennel to the yard will make the difference. Teaching your handlers and giving them the skills is the key. And most facilities do a really good job with this, with teaching these beginning handlers how to handle and read the scenarios that could pose a problem in the future.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there's a lot more to it than kind of meets the eye from looking at it and in the outside world. You might think, well, I'm just going to have my dog go and play with some other dogs, and they come home tired and happy, and it's great. But clearly, from the standpoint of when we're in running the daycare and trying to figure out what's best, there's certainly a lot that goes into it. So, from just the pet parent standpoint, Chad, tell me about what pet parents can do. Not only when maybe they're considering daycare or having their dog start daycare or like on the first day, but also going forward through your day to day. If you bring your dog, say, a couple of times a week, what can you do at home to help, or even on the way to daycare on the morning of, to help set your dog up for success?
Well, the key to that is a lot of times the people that are sorting us out as clients have dogs that are medium to high energy dogs. Some are extremely high energy, which is why they're searching out a place to put the dog during the day. The amount of energy your dog has will dictate. So high energy clients at Charlie's, we ask that they exercise the dog before coming to daycare. So get up in the morning, let the dog out, take it for a run, bike ride, treadmill, play ball in the backyard, a nice long walk, whatever it is that you do to exercise to drain some energy. Some of our clients even walk the dog to the kennel, or they'll ride a bike to the kennel and bike the dog in. That way we've drained some of that energy. some of your more anxious dogs, we have asked clients to use seat belts or crates in their car to reduce the amount of space that the dog has to get too excited and amp up before the experience of social play. Social play is like Disneyland to a dog. So keeping our kids calm prior to Disneyland, very important. The entry, again, that entry to the school, if the dog enters ecstatic, I call daycare school, if they enter to that daycare ecstatic and crazy because their ride in was immensely stimulating, well, that energy is coming into the lobby. It's going to transfer to your staff and then into your yard. So when we teach owners leash skills, just basic leash skills are the most important thing that we ever teach in the training realm of canine clarity is just basic leash skills. And that really washed out of Charlie's because people that come in and handle their dog effectively because they understand the positioning, a nice loose leash to calm the excitement before they enter the facility will help the dog have a better day, help the staff have a better pack. And overall, your dog's going to get the same social skill, the same energy drain, but the option for anything to occur because you manage that energy basically from the morning all the way through, it's easier for the facility and the dogs are going to have a more positive experience.
So what do you say to an owner who says, they have a high energy dog and Lord knows if you've had a super high energy dog, you know how, actually, I'm always envious of the dog's energy. Like, where did that come from? How do you keep it going? It's amazing. But, I think a lot of owners have this mindset of, well, I'm taking my dog to daycare to get this energy out. So kind of, hey, I'm paying you to do this for me so I don't have to run the energy out. So when you've suggested to owners, hey, can you, take your dog for a run or bike your dog in, or what's the response like?
They are actually quite receptive because when you start to explain to them that the success of their dog in the environment, because what we do is obviously if dogs start to fall out of balance or create issues within our packs, we have to remove them from the facility and then they can't be part of that facility. So we educate our client from the very beginning that when we have these scenarios, so it's really high energy and then extremely high energy, that we're going to ask these types of things for. Say, hey, plan a little bit, and your breeds will fall into this, like a high working line German, Rottweiler. Certain breeds are going to fall into a category where it's just better to make sure that we've done, and even a simple obedience session. The last client, I just asked that you do in-house obedience. Do a 15-minute obedience session with your dog because mental and physical stimulation is both equal. So whether we tire a dog's mind, it also tires the torso and brings that body down. So there's a lot. And then also by restraining that dog a little bit into the car and having some rules and boundaries into that space, we're teaching and educating the dog to stay calmer prior. The owners, as long as this is communicated effectively to them, that's saying, hey, we want your dog to be successful here at Charlie's and at Unleashed. We want your dogs to be successful. But in order for them to be successful, this dog is going to require a little bit more drain before entry because we're struggling a little bit in the yard, controlling it for usually about the first 3 hours. Those dogs are going to go kind of woo, like they're in New Orleans, and that can stir up your yard and cause a lot more stress for the handlers. And that stress, that energy that's in the handlers is going to end up in some of your anxious dogs into your yard. It'll be a rippling effect that makes the entire day fall out of whack sometimes. So once you identify these dogs, pulling those owners aside, and then it's, in my eyes, it's no different than communicating that, hey, we need you to have better control of your dog when it enters the building. Because there's some people that when they bring dogs into daycare, they're appearing sometimes a bit out of balance in the lobby when we know as owners and pack managers that the dog is totally fine within a pack. Some owners we have to pull aside and ask them to use certain equipment. Teach them. So we have to pull them aside and teach them how to use that equipment so that the entry is more calm and we can hand a dog off. I've seen daycare centers where the handoff it's almost like a jacked up relay race, on Adderall where they're handing these dogs off and the humans can't, and that's how the day starts. So those packs, every time I've been in a facility like that, those packs resemble what you saw in the lobby. So teaching our clients how important it is. Yes, the daycare is for social skill. It's to understand other breeds and energies. It's understand play style. So our handlers' jobs are to just dictate play style and keep energy at a minimum.
Hmm.
within those yards. So our high energy dogs are going to stand out. They're going to cause spikes in the environment. And then we're going to have to work with that. And then that's where we identify which owners can we pull aside and then chat with. Now, not every
Sure.
person's going to receive it exactly the same. And then depending on how the delivery goes,
Hmm.
this is something we have our managers deliver,
Yep.
or a handler that's been with us a long time. They would be delivering those types of messages just so that everybody feels comfortable that we're not signaling you out. We're trying to help you be successful and keep your dog within the environment. We know what failure is going to look like down the road. We've been doing this a long time. So now I can look upstream and say, okay, if we address this now, if we put preventative on this now, we're not going to develop into the things that I know develop from these areas of energy. So
Yeah.
they're
So
pretty receptive.
yeah, no, I can imagine if you certainly approach it that way. So you talk to owners about maybe doing 15 minutes of something at home, whether it be physical or stimulus, mental stimulus for your dog, and then the car ride is key. Trying to figure out the best way to have your dog be calm in the car, maybe restrained. And then from the car to the lobby, you mentioned and talked about the best way to walk a dog into the lobby of the facility.
Yes.
Elaborate on that for me, if you would, Chad, and how you coach these particular customers with high energy dogs, how it is best to bring the dog into the lobby to the front desk and get the dog to the transition to the handler.
Absolutely. And a lot of people feel when their dogs are ecstatic and too energetic, people feel embarrassed. Once they feel embarrassed, their energy goes down, their handling goes into the tanker. So explaining to a human that take a deep breath before you get out of your car. If we have the dog in a seatbelt, the dog is less likely to have gotten too anxious. We can bring that dog out. Now, we even take it as far as equipment. So I prefer a slip leash is my preferred tool. And just teaching a client how to use a simple slip leash in the right position up on the neck so that we have power steering. And the top of a dog's neck is power steering.
Yep.
A gentle power steering, so we can move gently. We can hold the leash like an ice cream cone. So we don't have to hold a lot of pressure into the leash. We just have to have a lot of expectation and be paying attention. And we as handlers, owners, and pack leaders have to be calm. So when we teach that nature only follows calm, confident, and you're taking them to Disneyland, remember, it's a little hard to keep everybody calm. We're not looking for like the dog to come in like in Zen state and like, what we're looking for is a dog to come in and not just be jumping all over, barking ecstatically, showing that energy in the lobby. So teaching them how to move from the car to the front door. When you reach for the front door, some of these dogs get very excited. So teaching an owner that, look, you can utilize our facility to practice. Like, come and practice. Why? I'll work with you to practice. 1 or 2 walks to the door, the humans will have it. They'll also be intrigued by what they've learned, and that will grow to another piece, which is obviously grown canine clarity, to teaching the clients that, look, I can teach you this all the time so that you always move your dog like this, because your dog moving like this will make a more relaxed human, more relaxed handler, and a better relationship overall. When you hand that dog off, we want the dogs to sit or stand and be calm. If they're standing and they're calm, we'll take the leash from the owner. If it's one of these dogs, we're going to ask that the owner gives the dog direction, gets it to a calm surrender state, which is a simple sit. When a dog is in a sit stage, they're less likely to make other decisions. And then we can hand that dog off. Even if it's, I'm going to school, it's going to be excited. We can't deny that. But handing this calmer dog, teaching an owner how to have calmer energy in areas and environments where they feel anxious, and helping them, let them know that don't be, it's okay to be anxious, but you don't have to be anxious. If you breathe and you practice the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which you can look up on Google and YouTube, I have all my clients practice breathing, because the breath will make the difference in how relaxed your body is and how you even hold your leash. So those dogs will always condition better into the facility.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just the realization of, as the human owner, your calmness, your awareness is going to affect your dog so much, and I think a lot of people, and I imagine, Chad, they're coming into work, or they're on their way to work, or it's a busy morning, like we all have, right? They've come in, maybe they've been triggered by something on their phone, whatever, and they don't even realize that it's affecting their dog. And then that translates into the other dogs in the pack and on down the line. So this kind of awareness it can be a huge thing, I imagine, to give people a little perspective as well. Like, hey, it's not only good for your dog, but maybe good for you to do some breathing,
Yes.
to take some time and take a moment before you enter the facility, and maybe in some way, and maybe I'm reaching here, but in some
Oh,
way,
yeah.
we can help the human to take a breath and realize, hey, I'm in a stressed state, and
Yes.
it'll help everybody if I take a minute here and do some of this practice to help the dog, but also help myself.
Yeah, helping people to slow down is really what it is. We are
Yeah.
all on our way to work. Most of the people that use daycare are professionals
Yep.
that want to have their dog at work. But again, I would say 2 out of every 12 clients are going to be the clients where we're going to want to have to talk to them about either too much energy or too much craziness in the lobby due to the
Hmm.
equipment and gear and the entry. It's only about 2 of those dogs out of every 12. All the other dogs will come in just fine because 95% of the dogs in the world are followers.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to have more energy in our environments, but we kind of have some control on that once the dog's inside. We do as the facility to be able to pack those dogs, give those dogs directions, give them stimulation breaks if they need it,
Hmm.
and communicate all that to the owner. By the end of the
Yeah.
day, exactly how your dog did in daycare, so that they understand as they go into other social environments like dog parks,
Yeah.
community picnics, soccer games, that they don't have a surprise on their hands
Right.
if they try to have a little social etiquette with their dog as well.
Yeah, for sure. Chad Fahey is with us. He is the owner of Charlie's Bark Park in Belleville. He was a consultant and advisor through our renovation process at Unleashed, and played a huge role in that also. And we get into this on another podcast. Chad once worked at Unleashed before it was Unleashed, and
Yes.
has some great memories from that, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, so it was a good time. But also Canine Clarity as well, your training business, Chad, which is amazing what you're doing. I'm kind of blown away by the level you've taken that to, so we can talk about that a little bit more later as well. But the difference between daycare, dog parks, other taking walks, they all have their benefits for sure. But if somebody's considering taking their dog to daycare on a regular basis, what sets daycare apart from other brands of stimulation, excuse me, and potentially socialization for a dog?
Well, when I look at direct correlation to, because most people correlate it to dog parks,
Hmm.
because dog parks are roughly almost free. You're going to pay a
Yeah.
small fee for the year,
Yeah.
and other than your time, the difference when I educate a client, you're considering daycare. Now there's a cost to that. There's going to be a monthly cost to that based on
Mhm.
how busy our dog is, and how to understand the difference between these. Well, dog parks are unregulated, and the owners are there. Now, some dogs have based on the leadership within the home, which a lot of humans are off. I formed a whole company around teaching humans leadership within the home. So a lot of our dog owners are off a bit when it comes to the psychology and the needs of the animal. So the animals become a little protective. Even when owners don't know that their dogs are very protective, well, then you bring them to a high stimulated environment like a dog park. Most people do not exercise their dogs prior to a dog park. And
Mhm.
that is an incredibly important piece of advice. If people take their dogs to dog parks, we educate you to exercise your dog for 45 minutes prior to entry. Why? Because it's not meant for exercise. It's meant for social skill and learning energies and socializing and having positive greetings. But if we bring a lot of energy into the yard, we have the owners present. People start throwing balls.
Mhm.
Dog parks let too much energy grow. Now, we know as pack managers, and if you're watching a pack of 30 dogs, you do not want too much energy into the yard. Too
Right.
much energy in the yard is going to spread through the yard like a fire on a dry grass day. That's going to be a problem. So dog parks, between the energy level, the no assessment of any dog, because anybody can bring any dog. A lot of people that get rescue dogs within the first 3 days are at a dog park.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just not a wise idea. You can have a lot of incidences and stories.
Yep.
If you ask any friends, they come out of those moments. Daycares don't have that. We assess the dogs thoroughly. We educate the clients. We don't have the owners in the pack. We regulate the energy and the pack involvement so we can move dogs from one pack to another. We frequently do it. Just because of certain dogs, we can keep certain dogs separate that maybe have a small beef with each other, but they're still social, but they just have a hair somewhere. We can
Mhm.
keep those dogs separate in our facilities and still create a positive social environment with a I communicate about 70% less risk than a dog park. It's not that I don't support dog parks. It's just those other prior reasons that I mentioned that make them a bit more riskier for the average everyday owner when you're in a dog park. And so we don't want you to have one of those experiences. Now, people can have similar experiences at a daycare. It's just a lot less likely if we're doing all of our jobs. It's not that dogs don't have spats and uprisings, we call them, here and there over the water hole, or they're not sharing their buddies fairly and the handler missed it. And there's a bit of escalated play, which we call it. It's still injury-free. There's a lesson taught. We can time out a dog. At a dog park, nobody really gives direction. After the chaos starts, everybody pulls their dogs and they leave. Nobody really gives any direction to the dogs. So they never learn that that is an inappropriate action that they took within the environment. And we always have to remember that dogs are environmental pattern-driven creatures. So the dog park is an environment, and if they race to the door, that's another thing that, just like walking to the kennel door, racing your dog, a lot of people open the door, let them out, and run to the right to the dog park's door, and then they put the leashes on and they walk in. That dog's coming in not in calm surrender. Any dog entering a pack that is not in calm surrender is going to pose a risk to the day, whether that risk is just small to minor to not. So daycares are going to weed all this out. So for your money, it's very well spent. The recipe of dog is exercise, rules, boundaries, limitations, and affection. So you're basically paying, as a dog owner, you're paying for the first ingredient of the recipe to be done for you, no different than we pay for an oil change in our car, a plumber to come fix our dishwasher, a doctor to fix our kneecap. We pay a lot of people to care for the things in our lives, helping owners understand that owning a dog today in this busy world that we are in sometimes takes more than one. So it's okay to lean on facilities like Unleashed and Charlie's Bark Park to help drain ingredient number one, gain a little education from our teams, because our teams are educated. So at a dog park, you can start talking to some of the dog owners, but at Unleashed and Charlie's, you can talk to the actual handlers and people that have experience and gain some knowledge that could grow your experience with your own dog and heighten your own relationship with them.
Yeah, and that's a huge key too. Your knowledge and understanding and building your own relationship is such a key and such a benefit that you certainly can see from having your dog experience daycare. So I'll get you out of here on this because our time is short here. But
Sure.
how many? One of the questions we get all the time, or sometimes people maybe should have an answer to, even if they're not answering the question, is how often, right? Because we have. It's the gamut. I'm sure you've experienced this, or maybe you've figured out the solution at Charlie's. But you have people. We have some people who want to bring their dog every day. We have some people who bring their dog once every 3 months and just show up and be like, "Hey, it seems like a good daycare day today." And sometimes that's okay, but most of the time it's like, yeah, no, because you can't bring a crazy dog with high energy. I say crazy endearingly, with high energy only once in a blue moon to daycare. And on the other hand, there's certainly dogs that do not and should not have daycare every day, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. Maybe some should only be once or twice a week. So what's kind of your thought process behind guiding a pet parent on how often they should come to daycare?
Sure. Again, this starts in the assessment. So the assessment is the most important thing done at Charlie's Bark Park. It takes hours, considerable amount of hours to train the humans how to read what we're asking them to read. But you're going to pick out the pack that dog plays, and you're going to pick out its energy level, its placement during the evaluation. You're going to watch it for the first day, and then we are going to make recommendations to the owner based on the energy and the output of that dog in that environment for that day. So we're going to say, hey, based on your dog, we're going to recommend 1 to 2 days a week. Some people, we don't recommend 1 to 2 days a week for every dog. We do have certain clients that want to come every day. I have over the years leaned away from that because creating a triathlete in your family, if you're not a triathlete, is really hard to keep up with. So mental stimulation is a great form of drain for those dogs that want to come every day. Well, get them into some training. Why? Because that'll drain them too. And they don't have to have so much physical, because that physical, once conditioned into the body will require it. That's what I mean by a triathlete. But teaching the owners that, so that they can understand that we went through the process and we're recommending 1 to 2 days a week. Some people we say just come once a week and let them decide, because most dogs will be tired after a day of daycare. They will be tired for a portion of the next day, if not the whole next day.
Mm-hmm.
Some dogs, I just trained one last week, that when it comes to Charlie's for a day, it is good for 2 days afterwards. Then the dog starts to get a little squirrely within the family, starts to get annoying, is what we say. The family starts to notice the dog's in the space of everybody, getting noisy, wanting to play. That means that dog's energy is back up, and we need to get that dog back in school. So we teach the owners how to try to regulate that. Now, if it's a dog like you were mentioning that is higher energy and a little bit more hands-on for our staff. Now, remember, 95% of the dogs in the world are followers. So there's only 5% of the dogs that are going to require these kind of communications and suggestions. But we will suggest to certain owners, and we, again, don't allow you to drop into daycare if you haven't been a regular client. Just because, unless we know your dog and we've had your dog for over a period of time, and we've allowed it, and we know that that dog can enter a pack of dogs that are completely different, because in a 3-month span, you're going to have lost dogs, gained clients, your packs have changed, your handlers may have changed, the environment looks different. So the dogs that drop in it's like starting over every single time. So, and if the clients require more daycare, but they're trying to drain it every 3 months, we start to educate those clients that is going to pose a problem for you and your family. And it's too much work for us. So those dogs, we ask that you come more frequently. But again, we're going to identify this 95% of the time in the evaluation. The handlers and the managers are going to decide, and the behavior team, where that dog fits, what is a good recommendation, because our clients in the beginning, remember, when they're at assessment stage, they are vulnerable to suggestion. They want to know what's best for their family and their dog. And so this is the time we as facilities should put out there some suggestions. That makes sense. You know, if we said every dog needs 5 days a week, then they would know we're just climbing in for the dough.
Right.
But if we say that we're looking at each dog individually, even if they're from the same litter with different owners, they're going to be different. And the communication coming out of the facility, that's one thing that I think really grew Charlie's over the years, was the passion to want to help dogs socialize, because it's something that a lot of people fear, is putting their dog in a social setting for sickness reasons and injury reasons, when it's really the answer to build a strong immune system and have a dog understand all those different energies, breeds, and direction that they get within a facility, because our staffs are providing direction to our dogs, which is really great, because house dogs at home sitting on the house, couch, waiting all day for the owners, they're just pent up and they're ready to blast when they get home. So an owner considering daycare, it's going to help you feel better about meeting the recipe, because the recipe has to be met. When I teach people that the recipe has to be met. Now, again, energy, we can't pick. It's just in our dogs. So we have to live with it. So we have to learn how to manage it. And we don't want to manage too much of it. If it's a high energy dog or it's anxious, we don't want to create that triathlete. You'll create separation anxiety by bringing it to school too much. So because then it can't be away from the owners and be alone unless it's incredibly stimulated. Still there?
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think that it makes a lot of sense. And Chad, you have a wealth of knowledge. What's the saying? You've forgotten more than I'll ever know when it comes to this stuff. So I appreciate it.
Well, no worries. I'm always glad to be here and help.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk again soon for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you much for having me.